What I want to talk about in this video is the options that freshmen have when they join the honors program. And what I'm describing really does apply just to freshmen, except for the custom honors. But this is something that we have done to make it a little bit easier for the freshmen to finish all the requirements and also just make it a little bit more exciting. So there are three different options that when you have admission scholars, you can advise them to take. The custom honors is actually what we already talked about, and this used to be the only option. It's basically taking all the requirements of the curriculum and just doing them at your own pace. So when a semester rolls around, you just sign up for the classes. It's very personalized, very individualized. No cohort, no set of classes at a certain time. It's whenever you want to do them. And like I said, that used to be the only option. And this is the only option we give for students who join the program when they're not freshmen. So if a sophomore comes in and wants to join the honors program, their only real option is the custom honors. So I want to spend more time talking about the Great Books program and the President's Emerging Global Scholars program, which we abbreviate as PEGS for short. You probably have heard me talk a little bit about these briefly when I talked about Jack Moran and Ken Hill and Philip Hoskins. So I'm going to explain what those programs are and what they have to do with the honors program. Let's talk about the Great Books program first. Basically, the Great Books program was headed up by a political science professor named Dr. Jack Moran, and he really believed that teaching our students with textbooks was not the best method because a lot of times textbooks are really dry, they're boring, and can be really irrelevant to what a student really needs to know about that subject. At the same time, he realized there was a lot of value in classical literature and that a lot of our students come out of college never reading that classical literature. So he got this idea that we should teach general education courses like history, philosophy, English with classic literature books. So he found a couple professors to work along with him, and he started a cohort called the Great Books program. And it doesn't use any textbooks for the classes. Instead, it uses really affordable classic pieces of literature. So for example, this semester the students learned their English through Jane Austen and their world history through the Iliad and the Odyssey. In the past, they've also used some religious texts like the Quran and the scriptures. So it just depends. The books change depending on what classes they're teaching and who's teaching the class, but they're really trying to get students interested in reading the classics. So that's the goal of this program. It's mainly for students who really love to read. And if you have a student who's kind of on the borderline about whether they should do the class or not, definitely ask them if they're interested in classic literature and if they like to read, because if they don't, they're not going to do well in this program. The classes are pretty demanding and they need to be able to handle the amount of reading involved each semester. The program is a year long. It starts in the fall semester and continues all the way until the summer. And in the summer, the entire cohort goes on a study abroad trip to Montepulciano, Italy, and they continue the last couple classes of their cohort in Italy. And this program is really nice because it manages to knock out a ton of the requirements for the new curriculum all at once, mostly the 5 designated honors courses, because they take a political science class, an art class, a history class. A lot of those classes, their very first semester at Kennesaw. And so they have a really big advantage over some of the freshmen who come in who take a little bit longer. So they also take a colloquium. So they really have a good advantage, a good grip on the honors program by their first year in the program, and they can kind of relax a bit at a slower pace for their sophomore and their junior year. So that's the Great Books program, and if you need any more information, you can definitely contact Dr. Jack Moran, the head of the program. I gave you his extension in the first video, and if you can contact him to ask him questions or to recommend a student to him, anything you need, he'd be glad to talk to you. The second program that I want to spend some time talking about is the President's Emerging Global Scholars Program. We call it PEGS for short. This program was actually recommended and then instituted by our president, Dr. Papp, and the goal of the program was to foster amongst the admission scholars, the best of the best freshmen, a mindset of servant leadership and global learning. And so the way that they do this is that the students have two different tracks depending on their academic interests, either a more social science, human services, sociology track, or a hard science, mathematics track. So it pulls the students from both sides of the spectrum into the same program, which is really great. And the students are going to take leadership geared classes that are actually honors courses. And so the way that we do this is we offer an honors colloquium every so often on leadership or whatever PEGS decides they want to focus on. It's usually PEGS professors and advisors who are teaching those classes. So they fulfill the PEGS requirements while simultaneously fulfilling the honors requirements. And the PEG students are a cohort usually between 20 and 50 students. It really depends on which semester it is. It varies a lot. But they also spend a full year in the program. They start in the fall, and then they go into the spring, and then in the summer they do their study abroad. And they've gone to Mexico and Brazil as their primary countries. However, the program is a little bit different than the Great Books program because it can be extended beyond a freshman's year. So this can be a program that students decide they want to be in all 4 years of their college career. And they start opening up more opportunities for them to mentor other students and to go other places. So recently they went to Africa. So that's the three different options that all of the students who come in as admission scholars have. They can either do the custom, they can do the Great Books program, or they can do the PEGS program. Those are their three options. And I forgot to mention that if you have any questions about the PEGS program, definitely contact Ken Hill or Philip Hoskis. I gave you their extensions in one of the videos. They'll be great to answer any of the questions you have. And if you would sit down and you advise with a student and they decide they want to be in the PEGS program, send them over to Philip. He's in the Student Center, in the Center for Student Leadership.